AI agents are everywhere, automating tasks and making decisions at machine speed. But agents make mistakes. Just one rogue agent can do big damage before you even notice. Rubrik Agent Cloud is the only platform that helps you monitor agents, set guardrails, and rewind mistakes, so you can unleash agents, not risk. Accelerate your AI transformation at Rubrik.com. That's RUBRIK.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a Happy Holiday.
Welcome to the Covert Narcissism podcast. I'm your host, Renee Swanson. I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. Have you ever noticed how cautious you've become with your words? Not silent exactly, but careful. You think things through before you speak. Maybe you test the waters. You decide what's worth saying and what's better left alone. Somewhere along the way, you realize that staying quiet often feels safer than being honest. And maybe you see this in your kids too. They give shorter answers. They retreat to their rooms. They say, it's fine, and never mind, more than they used to. And you're left wondering, what's changed? Was it something that you did, something you didn't do, something that they learned quietly about what happens when they speak up? If you've lived with covert narcissism or chronic emotional invalidation, this didn't happen by accident. You didn't stop talking because you stopped caring. Your nervous system learned that honesty came with consequences, and that conversations are risky, that safety sometimes is best found in silence. In this episode, we're going to unpack why that happens, for adults and for children. We'll talk about the different kinds of safety that have to exist in order for healing to happen, how covert narcissistic dynamics quietly train people to go silent, and what helps voice and connection to slowly return. Welcome back to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we make sense of the behaviors that left you confused and quiet, and talk about what it actually takes to feel safe enough to start speaking again, and to help your kids feel that safety too. Before we jump into today's episode, I want to briefly respond to a message that I received after the series that I just did on the physical signs of trauma when you're dealing with covert narcissistic abuse. These are very real ways that abuse shows up in your body, big and small. And I know that this listener's experience will resonate with many of you, so I want to share it here. She shared that her tinnitus, and if you don't know what that is, that's ringing in the ears, something that I deal with as well, but mine is more on and off. She shared that hers began in 2019, right after a deeply traumatizing discovery in her marriage, and that unlike the intermittent tinnitus that many survivors experience, hers has been constant, 24/7, since 2019. She was also told by her doctor, well, there's nothing that we can do, which left her feeling dismissed and without help. Now, I want to say this to that listener. Your experience is real. Your body is not malfunctioning, and you are not imagining the connection between trauma and what you're living with now. Persistent tinnitus is common when the nervous system has been in this long-time survival mode, especially after years of emotional instability and hypervigilance. Now, I cannot give medical advice, but I do want you to know that there's nothing you can do. That's not the full story. Many survivors have found trauma-informed approaches extremely helpful. Things like somatic therapies, vagus nerve work, limbic system retraining, TMJ and neck-focused physical therapy, sound-based habituation therapies. These don't promise instant relief, but they can help lower that nervous system's baseline so that your symptoms become more manageable. So please don't just stop with the doctor's advice of there's nothing you can do. If you're dealing with ongoing physical symptoms, I strongly encourage you to find the trauma-informed therapist. If you need help figuring out where to start, you're welcome to reach out to me. I will help you in that journey to find the right therapy for you. Your body learned to survive for a very long time, and it can learn safety again. To the listener who wrote in, thank you for sharing your story. You're not alone. I want to invite anyone who has questions and concerns to reach out to me by email anytime. Renee, RENEE, at covertnarcissism.com. Now let's get back to covert narcissism and trauma, why you and your kids stop talking. Now, I've talked before about the absolute necessity for safety in order for healing and growth to happen. And that is true for any and all of us. But it's worth slowing down for a minute here and asking a more precise question. What is safety? What really is it? Because it's a word we use often, but rarely we define it in a way that honors how deeply it affects our nervous system, our relationships, our kids. Now, physical safety is one of the easiest parts to see. We all want to know that we are not in physical danger. Being able to trust that the people in our lives are not going to hit us or throw something at us, that's really important. But it goes further than that. Physical safety doesn't just mean the absence of hitting. It means not living with intimidation, unpredictable rage, or even any rage, punching holes in walls, blocking exits, slamming doors, throwing objects across the room, or even looming over you in a way that makes your body freeze. Even when nothing technically happens, no physical contact actually happens, your body still knows when it doesn't feel safe, and it responds accordingly. Even though they never actually hit you, you still experience a very real physical reaction to these behaviors. For many survivors and many of our kids, the lack of emotional safety is where a significant amount of the damage occurred. Emotional safety means that your feelings are allowed to exist without being mocked, minimized, corrected, or even turned back at you as though you're the problem. It means you can say, that hurt, without being told that you're too sensitive or dramatic or that you are attacking them. It means your emotions aren't treated as inconveniences or even as threats. Now, let me give you an everyday example here of this difference. Imagine finally saying to your partner, I've been feeling really lonely lately. In a safe relationship, that might be met with curiosity and definitely would be met with care. You might hear something like, I didn't realize you were feeling that way. How can I help? This partner leans in. They're offering compassion and safety. They hear your words and they desire to support you. Now let's compare that to an unsafe relationship. Your expression of feelings now turns into defensiveness. At the end of a full day, when you say, I've been really feeling lonely lately, your partner, seeing this as a threat, exclaims, so clearly I'm the bad guy. I'm doing the best I can, but clearly it's not enough. You're just so needy. The outcome here is completely different. Now, all of the focus is on your partner and how hurt they are by your feelings. Your feelings do not have a safe space to land. You're not given the space to express your loneliness. You might even find yourself now tending to their feelings. I know you're doing the best you can and you've been really busy. I do appreciate you and I'm very lucky to have you in my world. Now the shift is we're focused on them and your feelings have been dismissed. Another example that many of you will recognize, you finally named something that bothered you maybe weeks ago, but you haven't felt safe to speak it, and you're met with, well, why didn't you tell me something sooner? You know I would have fixed it, but you never give me a chance. This statement shifts the focus away from the content, the thing that you're bringing up, and onto your supposed failure for timing. Once again, you're now defending yourself. You're now taking care of their feelings. You're now explaining why you didn't speak up and you were the one feeling in trouble. Now compare that to the partner who says, I'm really glad that you're telling me this. I want you to feel safe to talk with me, and I'm sorry that my actions upset you. One response shuts you down, but the other invites you in. That difference is where the safety lies. Safety is not about always agreeing, but it's about how information is received. When safety is present, emotions don't have to be perfect in order to be valid. Words don't have to be exactly right. You're given the space to work through how you think and how you feel. But when safety is absence, you don't get even an ounce of that space. In fact, even the most gently delivered expression of your feelings becomes an attack on them. In emotionally unsafe environments, people don't stop feeling, they just stop expressing their feelings. You learn to edit yourself. You learn to downplay your feelings. You learn to make yourself smaller. You learn to manage the other person's reactions instead of being honest about your own internal world. Your feelings don't disappear. Your expression of them, that's what goes away. Over time, that self-silencing becomes automatic, and it can haunt survivors for the rest of their lives and impact every relationship that you have or that your kids have going forward. Now let's talk about psychological safety. This is especially important to name for survivors of covert narcissistic dynamics. Psychological safety means that reality stays stable. What you said yesterday doesn't get denied today. Your memory isn't constantly questioned. You aren't left wondering whether you imagined something that certainly felt very real. When psychological safety is missing, your mind never rests. Your mind never gets to trust itself, and instead it keeps replaying conversations. You know that ruminating that you do? That's because you don't have psychological safety. You're constantly searching for clarity that never quite comes. Now, here's what this looks like in real life. You bring up something that was said the day before. Maybe it wasn't dramatic, just a comment that landed a way that kind of stuck with you. And you say, hey, yesterday when you said that my tone was the problem, that really hurt, and I've been thinking about that today. In an environment without psychological safety, the response comes quickly and it comes firmly. I never said that. They don't say something like, I don't remember saying that, or that wasn't my intention. No, it's a flat and firm denial. I never said that. The conversation immediately shifts. You're no longer talking about what hurt you. You're suddenly defending your memory, your perception, your reality. Your body tightens and your mind scrambles. You start replaying the moment in your head, trying to prove to yourself that you're not losing it. Now compare that with a psychologically safe response. You bring up the same moment, and the response is, hey, I don't remember saying it that way. It certainly wasn't how I intended it, but I can hear that that hurt you. Notice the difference. Reality isn't erased. Your experience isn't dismissed. There's room for two perspectives without one of them being declared invalid. In the first scenario, your nervous system goes on high alert because reality feels unstable. If what you clearly remember is denied outright, your mind has no place to land. It keeps searching for certainty and clarity. In the second scenario, even without perfect recall, safety is preserved because your experience is still acknowledged. The relationship can hold nuance instead of forcing one version of reality to disappear and only the other version to be what's held. It's this difference between saying, I never said that, and I don't remember saying it that way. This difference between psychological harm and psychological safety is profound. One fractures trust in your own mind, the other allows it to safely exist. This is why so many survivors describe feeling foggy, confused, or mentally exhausted. Their brains weren't failing them, they're working overtime to survive in an environment where reality keeps shifting. Safety also shows up in conversation. Conversational safety means you can bring up something difficult without fear of punishment. You aren't met with immediate defensiveness, blame, stonewalling, or withdrawal. You don't pay a price later for what you said earlier. You aren't taught, subtly or overtly, that honesty equals consequences. When conversational safety is absent, people stop talking. Not because they don't care, not because they don't have feelings, but because their nervous system has learned that silence is safer than truth. This is especially true for our children. They don't stop sharing because they don't have thoughts and feelings.
Support for this podcast is brought to you by Walden University. Ever catch yourself thinking, what if I could go after what I actually want and really make a difference? You're not alone, and that's exactly why I want to tell you about Walden University. For over 50 years, Walden has helped working adults like you get the W, with the knowledge and skills to build the future you want and make a difference where it matters most. If you've been waiting for the right moment, this is it. Head to waldenu.edu and take that first step. Walden University. Set a course for change. Certified to operate by Chev.
They stopped sharing because they learned it wasn't safe to do so. I want to give you another example of how this safety either exists or it disappears. Imagine you bring up something small but meaningful, something that really stuck with you. And you say to your partner, hey, I want to talk about something that's been sitting with me. When you snapped at me in front of the kids earlier, it really hurt. Now, you're not yelling, you're not accusing, you're just naming your experience and your feelings. In an unsafe environment, the response comes back immediately. What? I can't say anything without it being a whole thing now? I have to be perfect? The message underneath is clear. Your honesty has just been reframed as an unreasonable demand. Instead of the focus staying on what hurt you, the conversation shifts to their frustration, their defensiveness, and your supposed expectations. Now your nervous system takes notes. You weren't punished loudly, but you were punished enough. The next time something hurts, your body remembers this moment. It remembers the tension, the reversal, the emotional cost to you. So what do? You stay quiet. Not because you don't care, but because you learned what honesty cost. Now compare that with a conversation where safety is present. You bring up the same concern, but instead now the response is, I didn't realize that came across that way. I am sorry. I was stressed, but I can see how that hurt you. No perfection required. Again, no yelling, but no defensiveness. No shame, just accountability and repair. That difference is huge. In the second response, honesty doesn't lead to escalation. It leads to understanding. And it gives them the space to be honest too. Like it goes both ways here. In the first example, honesty was treated like an attack and it shut down. Over time, silence becomes the safer option. Now, I want you to think about your children. This is so true for them. They learn to protect themselves by staying quiet. And that silence can last well into adulthood. Children that are raised in unsafe emotional environments often struggle to communicate. It's not that they're bad communicators. It's that they learned early that expression led to consequences. When kids repeatedly share something difficult and are met with defensiveness or dismissal, they don't stop having feelings. They just stop sharing them. They internalize everything instead. They withdraw. They might even reach a point they start exploding, or they shut down completely. All of these are adaptive responses to a lack of safety. When someone does not make it easy to talk with them, you will find yourself being more guarded, more cautious, more defensive, and in fact, walking on eggshells. Over time, you end up saying less and less to them. This is a naturally occurring consequence to their behaviors, their attitudes, their words. With many covert narcissistic individuals, they create an environment where talking to them is incredibly difficult and painful. Well, then they blame you for not talking to them. But that's not on you. This is a consequence of the environment that they're creating. Think about how many times you started a sentence and stopped halfway. How many times you thought, it's not worth it. How many times you swallowed words because you knew how the story would end. That didn't mean you didn't have something important to say. It meant you were tired of paying the price for saying it. This is why safety in conversation is everything. Safety determines whether truth is shared or buried, whether repair is possible or impossible, whether intimacy grows or withers. I want to give you an example of how this often shows up with teenagers. A teen finally says something that takes courage to this narcissistic parent. Maybe they say, "I don't like it when you joke about my grades in front of other people. It makes me feel stupid." Now, this is a reasonable thing for a teenager to speak up about. They might say it casually or with a shrug, but there's a risk to it. Teens don't offer vulnerability easily. In an unsafe environment, the response comes back defensive and dismissive. "Oh my gosh, I was just joking. You're so sensitive. What, now I can't say anything without walking on eggshells?" You see how this got turned back at them? The message lands fast and clear. The teen's feelings just became a burden to this parent. Their honesty just created conflict. So the teenager adapts. They stop bringing things up, and in fact, they probably already had learned that anyways. They give shorter and shorter answers. They retreat to their room. From the outside, this looks like attitude or withdrawal. It looks like problems from the teenager. But inside, it's actually protection. They are protecting themselves. Their nervous system has learned that speaking honestly does not lead to understanding, it leads to being minimized and blamed. Now imagine that same moment in a safe environment, and the teen says, "Hey, I don't like it when you joke about my grades in front of other people." And the response is, "I didn't realize it came across that way. I'm sorry. I won't do that again." No lecture, no defensiveness, just repair. In that moment, the teen learns something important. They don't need to be dramatic to be taken seriously. They don't need to make a big scene to be heard. They don't even need perfect words. Their feelings are allowed to exist without being turned into a problem. This is how teens decide whether it's safe to talk or safer to stay quiet. And once that silence sets in, it can be very hard to undo it, which is why conversational safety matters so deeply, especially during the teenage years. Conversational safety teaches the nervous system whether speaking leads to connection or consequences. Now, I want to take this one step further. Here's a part that matters just as much, but it often gets overlooked: repair after the fact. Let's say the parent didn't respond well in the moment. Let's say that parent was you. The teen shared something vulnerable and you found yourself defensive. It does happen, especially when you're in the dynamic of a covert narcissistic household. Maybe you were the one making the joke about the grades, not realizing it was a problem, and your teen spoke up to you, and you got defensive. "I was just joking. It wasn't a big deal." The conversation shuts down. The teen withdraws. The moment passes, but the impact, it lingers. This is where repair comes in. Repair looks like coming back later when things are calm and reopening the door to that conversation. You might say to them, "Hey, I've been thinking about what you said earlier. When you told me that my joke about your grades hurt you, I got defensive instead of listening to you. I am sorry about that." Notice what's happening here. There's no justification. You're not defending yourself now. You're not explaining. You're not minimizing. And then comes the most important part. You say to them, "I don't want you to feel like you can't talk to me. Your feelings matter, and I want to do better." That sentence alone can change everything. It tells the teen that honesty isn't permanently punished and that mistakes can be repaired. Now, your teenager may not respond right away. That is pretty typical. And teenagers don't want a long conversation here. Your words can be short, simple, and honest with them. They might shrug, they might say, "Okay," but that doesn't mean the repair didn't land. Safety is built through consistency, not instant closeness. This is not a short-term fix. You're in this for the long run. What matters is that the nervous system registered something was different this time. Repair teaches teenagers that relationships don't end when someone messes up. It shows them that accountability exists, that emotions can be revisited, that silence doesn't have to be permanent, and over time, those repairs rebuild trust where it was lost. This is crucial for parents to hear. You don't have to get it right every time in order to give your children safety. You just have to be willing to come back, own your part, reopen the conversation without punishing them. This is relational safety. The sense that the relationship itself won't be threatened if people speak honestly. In unsafe dynamics, love feels conditional. Connection feels fragile. You learn that disagreement leads to withdrawal, coldness, and emotional abandonment. But relational safety, that allows that conflict might have happened, rupture might have happened, but there's space for repair. It acknowledges that when conflict happens, the relationship can survive it. You don't have to earn your place by being agreeable or just staying quiet. You're not one honest conversation away from being shut out. These kids need safety. You need safety. My son recently said to me, "Mom, you have provided me safety and shown me the difference it makes." He said this on his own, almost out of nowhere when he spoke these words to me. He told me, "I know what it's like to not have that, and now what it means to have it, and what a difference it makes. It took us a while to get there, but you've shown me that difference, and I want to provide that safety for others." I could not believe the words that were coming out of his mouth. I remember standing there listening, thinking, did he really just say that? This is a child who has struggled so deeply, a child who lived inside confusion, emotional volatility, and stress that no child should ever have to carry, a child who did not always feel safe, internally or relationally. And here he was, naming safety, understanding its absence, and wanting to be a source of it for others. Hearing him articulate this felt like witnessing something sacred. His words hit me so deeply, not because they were poetic, but because they reflected a nervous system that no longer needed to brace, or was at least starting to understand that it didn't need to brace. He wasn't just acknowledging safety, he was starting to embody it. And when someone finally experiences safety, something remarkable happens. They want to offer it to others. This is how that cycle breaks. For parents listening, especially those who raise children inside confusing, high conflict, or narcissistic dynamics, I want you to hear this clearly. Safety is one of the greatest gifts you can give your children. Not perfection, not constant explanations, just safety. Safety to talk, safety to feel, safety to make mistakes, safety to tell the truth without fear of punishment, even if it takes time. Even if there are years where conversation feels impossible, even if you question yourself constantly, children don't heal because we say the perfect things. They heal because someone makes it safe for them to be real. My son didn't say, "You fixed everything." He said, "You showed me the difference." And sometimes that is everything. I wish you so much peace on your journey of healing. You have been listening to the Covert Narcissism podcast, where we break apart the insidious nature of these incredibly destructive and infinitely frustrating individuals. If you are caught up in this crazy-making relationship and drowning in self-doubt, guilt, or rumination, please reach out to me anytime. I offer individualized live coaching in both group and individual settings. We can find the right program for you. You do not need to go through this alone. You can find all of that information on my website at covertnarcissism.com. You can also reach out to me by email at Renee, RENEE, at covertnarcissism.com. I do look forward to hearing from each and every one of you. Remember, I am not a therapist, and you are not a victim. I am a coach, and you are a survivor. The information provided by Renee Swanson, Covert Narcissism Podcast, and CNG Life Coaching is for educational purposes only and is not to be used for diagnosis purposes. It is not intended to be a substitute for clinical care. Please consult a healthcare provider for guidance specific to your case. This material discusses narcissism in general. Renee shares stories from her personal experience as well as from those that she has worked with for several years. Her material does not claim that any specific person has narcissism and should not be used to refer to any specific person as having narcissism. Permission is not granted to link to or repost this material to support an allegation or support a claim that any specific person is a narcissist. That would be an unauthorized misuse of the material and the information provided. Thank you.
Happy holidays! Want to give your host a gift? Consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing the show this holiday season. It really helps the show grow. From all of us at Believe, have a Merry Christmas, everyone, and a happy holiday. If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.
Did you grow up with a Jekyll and Hyde parent, the kind you had to tiptoe around just to keep the peace? So did I. I'm therapist Tori Wixel. Every Tuesday on my podcast, You're Not Crazy, I talk about what it's actually like to grow up with a toxic parent. We dive into the reality of what it means to be a cycle breaker and an emotionally healthy adult when all you saw growing up was what you didn't want to do. If you're ready to stop questioning your own sanity, tune in to You're Not Crazy wherever you listen to podcasts.